these times have been asking whether we can record them, and we have been recording them all that we've done so far and putting them on our YouTube channel. You can just go to YouTube and search for Paleobiology Database, and it should pop right up. You can also go where I'm going to show you today to find videos and a whole bunch of other stuff. So before we get started with today's webinar, I just want to ask if anyone who is trying to do data entry, who were at last week's webinar, if you have any questions or any concerns about that, please type them in the chat. We have people with microphones on. Please make sure they're off. I'm getting a lot of feedback here. Please keep your microphones off. I'm turning them off now, but if you guys got to do that, or it gets really confusing for me to hear other stuff. So any concerns? Yes, so my colleague Evan Vlachos is here as usual, and he is he's our chat bot. He's not a bot, he's a real person, but he'll be monitoring the chat window as we go forward. So if you have questions, the best thing to do is put them into chat. That keeps crosstalk down and keeps me from getting confused hearing people in my ear. So, like I said, first off, any questions about data entry? There were some hitches. We had some technical issues, but right now, if you were at the data entry webinar and you got you had a guest account on the training site, I've now upgraded you actually all the way to authorizer, and you can enter data on the training site. So you can practice there. You can mess up. We don't care. We don't want you to mess up on the real site, but that's why we're having you go to our training site where you can do that training and not worry about making errors. But if you haven't tried that, please do. And let me know if you have any questions. I've already had a few people say, can you look at this? And I've had some recommendations for them. Okay, any questions before we get started? Okay, seeing none, I mean, you can pop them in there anytime. Again, I'm Mark Uhen, and I'm gonna today I'm gonna do basically just a show and tell about a bunch of stuff that are resources of all sorts, but focusing on education that you may not have known were there. So I'm gonna switch over to showing you my screen. Let me see if I can share. I'm gonna show you. How do I turn off the other sharing? Hold on. What can you guys see right now?
PBDB website.
Okay, that's what I want. So it says I'm sharing two applications, but I want you to see the PBDB website, which is just what I want. So when you go to the main site, there's this little button up here called resources. If you've never pushed it, you should. There's all kinds of great stuff. We're going to skip contribute. I'll do that at the very end, but we're just going to start at the top of the list, and I'm going to walk you through what's here. And there's some specific lesson plans we'll get to, but almost any of this stuff could be used with students. So let's take a look. So the first thing on our list, so they're all just here in a batch. So I'm just going to start at the top and scroll to the bottom. Here we have a bunch of apps that have been developed that are served up on the web. The navigator you should be familiar with. We looked at this in previous webinars here. This is the mapping function you can get to from the main site. And then, so since we looked at that one before and it's easier to access, so I'm going to skip it. Over here we have First App. This was one made by Matthew Clapham, who's the secretary of our board. Sometimes it takes a minute to come up. This one will show you the first appearance and ranges of taxa in a group of organisms, as long as it's entered in the database, of course. Sorry, this one takes a little while to fire up once in a while. Here it comes. So here's an example. I'm going to switch it over to my favorite group just because I'm running the show here. So here are whales, and you can see this graph shows the number of occurrences at all these different times. And you can see here's the first one. You can look at it in plot form or table form. So here's just a little, in the table, it just shows you the earliest ones. But you can also download a sort of mini version of this data. So this is another way to access data. Like I showed you the first time I webinared, there's many ways to access data, and yet this is another one. This can be really handy if you just want to like find the first occurrence of any group, and that's exactly what he designed it to do. So back over here, Matthew made another one called insect size. So you didn't know this, Matthew Clapham has entered literally all the fossil insects into the database, along with measurements of both wingspan and body size, just taken from pictures of insects. And so this one is taking a minute to plot because there's a lot of them, maybe more than you think. And so this is showing wing length over time, and you can see he's even got them separated. In gray are compression fossils, and in orange are amber. So you can see they're a little different, and so you can change how it plots them. You can change from wing to body, but you basically get this, and you can plot any subgroup of insects as well. You can do like instead. There you go. So again, Matthew created both of these for his own work and then shared them with everyone here. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So if you create a little widget or a lesson plan or a video and you're like, gosh, maybe somebody else would want to use this, I will show you how to do that at the very end. So stay tuned. So Michigan Basin Fossils, this is an older one, not really based on the database, but there's a volunteer group at the University of Michigan that has created this nice gallery. So this could be super helpful if you're doing online teaching and you need to show people fossils. There's some really gorgeous pictures here, and some really interesting data. So by all means, that could be super helpful as you're creating online versions of paleontology labs for your students. FossilWorks, we know and love. It's run by John Alroy and is basically the sort of clone of the older version of PBDB, although some features were taken away. It's still got some really great features, like you can do maps here that you can download as Illustrator files. You can monkey with them when you're done. That's not something that the PBDB main site has available. There are some range chart functions and confidence interval functions here that I still use. So by all means, please use this. So FossilWorks gets a nightly data feed from the PBDB. So if you enter data in PBDB, it'll, we hope, show up in FossilWorks the next day. We send the data to FossilWorks every day. And so far, the data transfer has been successful, I think, all the time. I don't think it's ever failed. So by all means, go to FossilWorks. You cannot enter data here, but you can do searches, download, do these analyses. You can draw maps and ranges and cool stuff. There's a lot of good tools here to help you with your research, and also for you can have your students go here. Like I have my students do a range analysis here. Okay, right through here. Phylogenetic, honestly, I don't know what this one does. It generates taxon trees. You can go there. I've not really explored the functionality of this one, but it's you can monkey around here and see what you can do. Again, these have all been submitted by people who use the database. And again, they're created for their own work and then shared with others. Here's another one from Matthew Clapham. This just makes you a species list. So I'll do a smaller group. Let's do, I don't know, This is a group of fossil odontocetes. So PBDB has 17 valid species and then 17 more invalid. So remember, PBDB keeps track of the currently used names and also names that were formerly in use. And so this is really handy for a group like this. They're like, okay, here are all the current names, but what about, Uhen ashbei? Well, there it is. Now, it was named by Myrick in 1979, but now is considered a subjective synonym of Xiphiacetus cristatus. And there it is. So you can use this when you're doing taxonomy of your group to see like what's valid. Invalid is maybe not the right word. These are names that are no longer in use. They might be available. So if you're a taxonomic stickler, maybe that word bugs you. But these are names currently in use, names not currently in use. So this is super duper handy when you're doing a deep dive into taxonomy. Again, assuming that you have the data entered in the first place. I'm going to clear out some of these windows here. It's just getting a little busy. Okay. Again, this is another tool that I don't use much. This is actually a GitHub record, or I think it's not GitHub. Anyway, you can explore this one. It's got you can see here these graphs break down all these different fossils into the environments that they were found in. But you can explore that yourself. And then this was actually created by a student of mine, an undergraduate student, and he's tapping into Delta 18O and Delta C13 records as a measure of climate, and you can plot, diversity versus climate. So here's cetacea versus this. Great chart. So there's the cetacean generic record along with Delta 18O over the Cenozoic. It's kind of fun. It's just a way to do some data exploration to see if these things are correlated at all. You can do carbon. His intent was to add more data to this. He hasn't yet, but it's fun to play with. You can do different taxa, you can do different climate models, all kinds of great stuff. So check that one out. Okay, so those are all the web apps. Those are apps hosted on the web that use PBDB data to some extent. Any questions before I keep moving on? Okay, hearing none, we're going to move on to the mobile apps. So these I'm not going to be able to really demo, but I'm just going to walk you through the three that are here because these are apps for your phone. Mancos was created by Steve Holland and co. And that one there's a nominal fee for, but it actually plots geologic maps. And if you click on the rock units, it will, one of the options is to show what PBDB fossils are in those rock units, which is pretty slick if you ask me. If you're going somewhere, if you're going on a field trip, you can use it and you can see what fossils have been collected in your area in the units that you're looking at. Sorry, I'm monkeying with my insulin pump for just a minute, so give me like 30 seconds here. Got to make sure I'm getting my life-saving medication. Okay. Flyover Country is another one that was developed in Minnesota. It's more geared towards the general public, but the idea is that if you're going on a trip, either in a car or an airplane, not that we're doing that right now, but when we can, you can plot the route and it'll show you the rocks and interesting things in those rocks, including fossils drawn from PBDB as well as neotoma. There's historical stuff. It's a really interesting app to sort of engage people in the natural history record, basically under your feet. Rocked is a app developed by Shannon Peters and co. at the University of Wisconsin. It integrates data from Macrostrat and PBDB, and it's sort of a geologic social media app. Like you can go places and like check in and see what other people have checked in there and describe the rocks you're seeing, describe the fossils you're seeing, and see what other people have said about them. So again, it could be incorporated into lesson plans, maybe not right now since we're mostly staying in our homes, but it's kind of cool. And I encourage you to explore them. The reason I'm not is just because we're not on a mobile phone. Rocked and Flyover are free. Mancos, there's a nominal fee. I don't remember what it is. I don't remember, $3, something like that. Okay, so this is sort of what I really wanted to show you today, the lesson plans and educational activities. A while back, several of us were PIs on a grant that's technically still active from the National Science Foundation to develop the educational aspects of the database. And some of these were created there, are charge was to create a bunch of activities for college level folks and then assess how students reacted to them. And so we did that, posted them here, and then hosted a bunch of seminars to encourage others to develop their own activities and share them. So some of these were pre that grant, some are during this grant, and some are the result of other people who we sort of trained to do that, making their own activities. As you can see, there's a range of different stuff here. Some are full-on lesson plans. Mostly we are hosting them at CERC. If you don't know about CERC, S-E-R-C at Carleton College, you really should. They have a ton of great educational material. And these are specifically designed to use the PBDB. So using range charts, making a diversity curve. Phoebe Cohen did this one on diversity and extinction of Phanerozoic. Andrew Zaffos here has this one slightly different. It's sort of it's a GitHub repository with R scripts and things, some slides, reading, writing, a whole bunch of lab exercises. So there's a lot in here to explore. This is actually a whole course that Andrew taught. So I think this is at a slightly higher level, but definitely explore that. And you can see what he did here. And share those with your students, and she shared them with you. These ones sort of in the middle here are ones that the grant team developed. I'll just show you the one I did, because why not? So again, this is hosted at CERC. This is, we often teach about how fossils indicated the existence of Pangea, particularly Gondwana, before we really understood plate tectonics, and this actually brings it to life, because if you've explored the PBDB navigator, you can plot fossils, and then you can plot them on today's world and then reconstruct them during the time when the fossils actually were alive, which really brings to light really clearly how the fossils suggested a different distribution. And when you put the continents back where they were, they make a lot more sense than their distribution today. So the way CERC has this set up, it's really nice. It sort of gives you some background info. There's info for the instructor, then all the materials you need to download to do it. And they're all like this. So again, there's even all these supporting things. You can use these for yourself. You can give them to your students. There's just a lot of material behind the activity. And these activities we made were designed for college students. Mostly at sort of introductory levels, but they could be downscaled a little for students at K through 12, or they could be even upgraded more for upper level paleo students. So we got ones on biogeography, diversity. This one's about the Panama Canal and its effects on biotic interchange. Here's one on sea level. So some get at geologic concepts using fossils. Some are a little more strictly paleontology. Here's one on biostratigraphy. And Rowan Lockwood developed this one here called Fossils Under Your Feet, which is local. You can actually localize it to your area, which is kind of nice. It gives students a more personal feel. So you can have people explore fossils near them. Now, of course, this doesn't work everywhere. If you're teaching in Hawaii, perhaps you're going to have a challenge, but you can pick different local areas. And down here we got a bunch. These were all made by people who came to some of our seminars, and we encouraged them to develop their own activities and then share them with the rest of the world, which I will show you right after this. So we got one on extinction, competition, and then reef building, a couple here on different reef building organisms. So they're all, I believe, hosted at CERC as well, so they have all the same format as the one I showed you. Now, since we're sort of at a good pause point, I'll pause for questions, and then I'll show you how you can upload. There's still more to show you, but I'll show you how to share your own resources if you decide to create one. Any questions at this point? Type them in the chat window if you do. Okay, so I'm going to go back up here, And remember, I skipped over this contribute. This is how, if you create a resource, how to share it. So PBDB doesn't actually host any of these things. They're all somewhere else, and we link to them. So all these educational activities are at CERC, and we create links to them. The videos of these webinars are on YouTube, and we link to them. So Sherry asks, I'm assuming these apps work globally because they're based on data. I'm not sure which apps you're talking about, but yes. Some of them work better in different areas. Like I don't think Mancos works outside the US, although I'm not sure. I think those are US maps, and I think Rocked, since it's hooked to Macrostrat, does not have global coverage. It's really strong in North America, and I'm not sure it works outside of North America. Definitely check. Yep, please do. Yeah, check it out. It's a good question. You know, I usually use them where I am, and I'm usually in North America. So, but it'd be good to know. So I'm going to show you how to contribute your own resource. The assumption we're making is that whatever resource you've created, it has a home at YouTube, at CERC, at GitHub. And once you have that, and you have a stable URL, you can do this. So we ask you just for some really basic metadata, a title, a description, the link to wherever it is. You can choose a little icon to display, and then we ask you to tell us what kind of thing it is, who it's intended for, and then some data about you. We do actually require your ORCID for this. So that's the one thing. You can be a guest. You have to have a guest account to do this, but we want to require your ORCID. If you don't have an ORCID, I strongly recommend you get one, even if you're not going to do this, just because it's sort of a unique identifier for yourself, and it can link you to your research, to data, to contributions like this. It's super helpful, especially for people, you know, approaching, you know, getting a job or promotion and tenure. This is the kind of thing that demonstrates, you know, you're a good educator. You've created lesson plans, stuff like that, and it's an easy way to link everything you're doing all together with your ORCID. So just ask who you are. It's ORCID. You can see it here on the screen, not orchid like the flower. It's a universal identifier for scientists. And you can go to their website, orchid.org, I believe, and you just put in some metadata and you get an ORCID. Yep, it's a good question. If we're done here after a while and you want me to show you, I can show you how to do it. There it is. Thank you, Evan. He's so good. He's so good. And at the bottom here, we ask you to do some keywords to your lesson plan. Like if it's strictly about a group of organisms, you can put that. If it's restricted to a time interval, you can put that. If you don't, I mean, if you don't have any, it's not restricted, you don't have to put anything here. And then when you hit submit, it goes into a holding pen where a human, me or Matthew Clapham, will look at it and make sure you're not spoofing us and putting bad things there. And you know, once we do a preview and make sure you have your I's dotted and T's crossed and it's a legitimate thing we want to share on our website, we'll light it up and it'll automatically show up back over here on our list. It'll be, you know, whatever you set, whichever category you put it in, it'll show up there. So it's actually really easy to share whatever you do. And I know a lot of people do this. They create activities, and we just want to make it easy to share, especially in this time when we're all moving to online education. If you're doing good work for yourself, by all means, please share it with people, because you know we don't want to keep reinventing the wheel, and we want to make your good work available to others. So let's go back where we were. We just went through all of these lesson plans. Sorry, I should pause. Any questions about uploading or sharing your resource? Okay, so we have here these educational tutorials. They're mostly educational about the database, telling you how to do stuff. So Like I said, this is the third webinar that I've done, and I'm recording them all, and I'm putting them on YouTube and then adding them as resources here. But in addition to those, there are educational tutorials about every aspect of this. So, way back in the day, Phoebe Cohen made a bunch of them. Introduction to Navigator, that's the mapping tool. Introduction to PBDB diversity data. Using PBDB with Excel. So Phoebe did a bunch of them. And this is the webinar, excuse me, the first webinar we did a few weeks ago on downloading data. And now here's a bunch of data entry tutorials. Here's the one I did last week. And then there's a bunch that I created specifically on these different topics, entering a reference, a taxon, taxonomic opinions. I guess I should probably do one on entering a collection too, since that's not there, but it is covered in this one. So these are literally just videos that I believe all of these are on our YouTube page. So you can go there and find them all. Just YouTube Paleobiology Database. And these are webinars or voiceovers of me doing stuff on my computer. And we have a bunch of R packages and scripts that people have run. So there is a PBDB R package. It's kind of, it's got a few very nice little tools in there. There's a variety of different stuff. Andrew Zaffos made one he called Velociraptor. Get it? Like R. Anyway, I thought that was clever. So a few different R packages. So if you're making R packages for your own work to do specific kinds of analyses, please share them, because why not? And if you put them here, you can then just link people to here or to your R repository, either way. My hope is that in the near future, when we have a little more funding, we'll be able to assign DOIs to these things. So you might be able to actually publish them if you want, and we can assign you a DOI so you can refer to that with the DOI number as well. I don't even know what this is. This is a webinar I gave a long time ago. This is sort of a random, we're not sure what to do with it videos. And then down here, we have some very utilitarian stuff. Now, I would not share this with your students, but in previous videos, I told you about the API, the Application Programming Interface. It's how you can get data out of the database, or you can create your own web app or phone app, and you can tap into the database using the API. And in fact, all of those web apps I showed you earlier and the phone apps use this system to get data. So you personally can do it, you as a person, or you can create machines that can access the database too. There's basically three of them. There's the main PBDB API where you can read all the documentation here. It's a little dense, but sometimes you got to do a deep dive. Then we had a grant a while back where we created the ELC API, which combines data from the Neotoma database and ours. So if you're interested in all things Pleistocene, I'd highly recommend checking that out. We're buddies with the Neotoma folks, and we work together with them on that. So you can get a mashup of data from both of our systems, because we're good on deep time. They're very good on shallow time, although we too have some stuff that for some reason or another is not in the Neotoma system. This way, if you want to look at the near recent, specifically the Pleistocene, I highly recommend using this one because you get more data coverage. The Panda API is really similar, except it mashes up data from iDigBio and PBDB. So iDigBio is a collection of museum records. And so this is sort of the raw data of both paleontology and modern. So as long as a museum is sending their data to iDigBio, you can get a data return that mashes up all of that with our stuff. It's very different class of data, right? This is the raw data. Stuff in PBDB is published data for the most part. So, sort of caveat emptor, they're not, museum data may or may not be identified, specimens may not be identified as well as published data, but it's really interesting to mash it up together and see how different the published record looks from the museum-based record. And you can also mash up fossil and modern things. Since most museums have both fossils and modern, you could, if you do a taxonomic search there, you can get both living and fossil representatives of your group. And then finally, Paleobiology Database actually has a GitHub repository that, if since we're a completely open resource, if you wanted to clone the entire database in a database structure, you go here, and all the code to do it is there. Because we just, we're completely funded, not completely funded, but mainly funded by the NSF. And I and the rest of the board feel very strongly that the work we do is public, and we want other people to do it. And think that if someone thinks they can make a better version of what we're doing, take it and run with it. So we've made it there. So that is the end of our resource list. I'm hoping that you guys will use this stuff. And if you create your own, please, please, please go here and contribute it. And we'll do our best to turn it around quickly and get it up on the site. Any questions? Now, I'm seeing something from Evan here. He said that he submitted a tutorial yesterday on how to plot PBDB data into Google Earth Pro and make a map. That's super cool. Is it waiting to be approved, Evan? Yes. Oh my God. I'm going to do it in real time right now. So I'm going to turn this off so you can't see me do it. Stop sharing. Give me 1 sec. I'm going to go turn it on, and then we can look at it together. How's that sound? Okay. Okay, so here we go. Now I'm going to share with you again. Okay, so back to sharing. All right, let's see what Evan did for us. He put in a new resource. Which category is it under? Let's see. There it is. It's a video tutorial how to add your data PBDB to Google Earth Pro. So yeah, you can download data and enter it into Google Earth Pro. So that's another brand new, hot off the presses, people. Let's see. It would be good to have a list of essential references for different kinds of analyses. That'd be cool. Yep, I agree. And that kind of list can, if you have it somewhere, even just like a Google Doc, you could share it here because the Google Docs have links. Yep, time series. Yes, I agree. So, Andre, what we're saying here is not we're going to do this. we have at PBDB have really gotten sort of we're going to provide the data, and then we want other people to make things like this. But we're giving the opportunity to share them here. So I would love to see that list, especially with links, right? That links to references or tools that can do those kinds of analyses. A couple other things, if you've never heard of them, the PAST statistical software, PAST. It's a statistical package you can download for free that's specifically designed for paleontology. It's quite wonderful, a good resource for your research. Any other questions about any of these resources? Oh, there it is. Yep, PAST. Thank you. Any other things people think they might want to do? Make lesson plans, make a video? Andre says it would make easier for beginners. Yeah, I agree. I agree. But I don't have the list. That's the thing. We need someone to, or a team of people to put it together. If you were to start such a thing with a Google Doc, we could blast it out to people and say, please contribute to the Google Doc, and then link to it from here. That'd be wonderful. Any other questions? All right. Well, I hope this was helpful. Like I said, there's sort of a lot of stuff here. I went through it rather quickly just because I wanted to just expose you to it. I assume some of you are more interested in certain things than others. I think right now, the things I just want to focus on are the lesson plans. There's quite a few of them. They're very deployable for a single lab for undergraduates, I would say. That's what we designed them to do. So, um, yes, Sherry says we don't know what we don't know until we know something. Yes, so now you at least know it's here. So by all means, I would spend a little time just pushing some buttons and seeing what looks useful to you. And again, what's missing? If it's missing and you can fill that gap, please do, and then upload it so we can share with other people, just like I did with Evan's brand spanking new video on putting dots on a Google map. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. We have some big plans for more, I think one more topic, and then we might start recycling these. So if you missed any of the previous ones, there are videos right here. So you can watch the videos, or we might do it again. Just sort of a rehash of topics we've done before. Yes, thank you from Evan to all of you. I hope you're all healthy. I hope your students are healthy. I hope your families are healthy, and please stay that way. And please make use of all these wonderful resources. Take care. You are all most welcome. I'm happy to do this. I actually really enjoy this, so I hope you do too.